But Old Court is not unique. In general, Ireland has a poor record in establishing causes of fires.
There's very little actual fire investigation as to the causes of fire or what could be done to minimise fires in the future.
If you don't understand what is causing fires and fire deaths in domestic situations, it's very hard to put in any kind of programme that will deal with the situation.
Since 1975, there's been a series of reports on the fire service commissioned by government. All recommended major change. The seminal report came in 2002. Tom Murray was its author.
You literally have on the playing field here 37 independent, discrete local authorities, each doing their own thing. Several different sections of the Department of the Environment, Heritage and Local Government. And at that time, at least 3 other statutory bodies, including the National Safety Council, the Fire Services Council, involved in the whole arena.
Who's responsible?
Nobody.
In Part 2, why change is not around the corner. And in Ballymun, a fire that exposes the flaws at the heart of our fire safety regime.
Fire was everywhere. Smoke was everywhere. We couldn't see a thing. We just ducked and we just ran.
In Part 1, we saw how the local authorities tasked to police our fire regime are themselves often open to question. Primetime also found that in public spaces there's still a failure of enforcement. It didn't take us long to find pubs and clubs where even the simple lessons of Stardust have not been learned. One of the biggest lessons, locked and blocked exit doors, contributed to the deaths. We found it still going on.
Inspections, and we do inspections, but there need to probably be more of them, and that's probably where the weakness still lies.
We aren't doing what the public think we're doing, which is out there and inspecting.
And why aren't you doing that?
It's down to resources.
On the scale of things, with our population and looking at the international statistics, a major disaster occurs about every 20 years. We're over 20 years since the Stardust disaster, and we're in borrowed time.
The Stardust Tribunal report called for an increase in inspectors and a tougher regime of inspections.
One of the recommendations coming from the Justice Keane report was that Dublin Fire Service should have a number of fire prevention officers.
There's a huge amount of inspections, 34 fire prevention staff working in Dublin, 4 in 1981, 100 nationwide.
I don't know where An Taoiseach received the figure of 34 from, but I've spent 24 years in Dublin Fire Brigade, and I see on a daily and nightly basis the figure of people that are involved in the policing of the system. At any given time, we would have 2 fire prevention officers that would regularly police the system to make sure that premises are complying with the legislation.
The 34 fire prevention officers that Taoiseach was talking about largely work behind desks. inspecting designs on paper for new buildings. And that system has its critics.
A fire safety certificate is only literally a piece of paper that says that the design, according to the local fire officer, appeared to comply with the intent and content of building regulations.
I have found that there is very little relationship between that piece of paper and what's actually being presented as a completed building.
It's based on a paper chase. It's an exercise that's carried out behind desks.
It's a desk exercise, but I'd like to believe that it's been a worthwhile exercise. It's certainly focused everyone's attention on design.
People die in buildings. They don't die on paper. They die in buildings, and buildings are constructed with bricks and mortar and concrete.
A recent survey showed 1 in 4 of new builds don't even have a fire cert. And when they do have certs, there's a question over their worth.
We're not out on the ground inspecting every building. We may get to 15% of the buildings that had fire safety certificates.
At best.
At best, yes.
Do I have a level of discomfort around it? Yes, I do, as I would with any paper-based system that doesn't involve physical inspection.
But Minister Roche claims that 50,000 out of the 80,000 new builds last year were inspected by his department's own inspectors. He disagrees that the system is largely paper-based. The people viewing the system on the ground dispute that.
I've seen everything on Irish building sites, and this is being allowed to happen because there is no effective system of control on Irish building sites.
There is not sufficient inspection taking place during construction and post-construction. And the system is highly dependent upon a regime of self-compliance within the construction sector, whether we're talking about developers or builders. Ballymun. It was here that the flaws at the heart of the paper-based system were shown up recently.
The regeneration programme has gone really well. There'll be 3,000 new houses built here in this decade.
It's all led by Ireland's biggest local authority, Dublin City Council, also the biggest fire authority. Ballymun is its frontier. Change is everywhere here. It's out with the old, in with the new. The Ballymun Civic Office is the flagship building of this frontier. And around the corner from it, but part of the same building, is the Shangan Hall apartment block. Tax breaks attracted investment pioneers here. All the units were sold off the plans. James Conan was one buyer.
Initially, we were looking for tax breaks, and we rode in and we bought 12 of the apartments in this block.
Property professional Anne-Marie Matthews was also sucked in.
One of the biggest attractions to Shangan Hall in particular was the fact that it was attached to the Civic Building, which is home to the Ballymun Regeneration, or part of Dublin City Council. So, naturally enough, an investor would assume that this can't go wrong, you know, it has to be good.
I mean, we invested in this building, these builders, this whole Ballymun regeneration project. I mean, we bought the whole thing, and we've bought a pig in a poke.
It's like an investor's nightmare. You have put your money on the table, as they say, and here we have a worthless piece of property.
The saga began with a fire in a top-floor stairway on a Saturday night last year. A fire that was to expose the weakness at the heart of our fire safety regime.
I got a smell of smoke. And so I opened the door and I could smell the smoke really bad, and I could see smoke coming through the door. So I went out and opened the fire door, and there's the fire blazing, and the whole landing's covered in smoke, everywhere, pitch black.
The fire started as a result of children, kids breaking into the building and lighting a fire extinguisher, a plastic extinguisher box, which, by the way, shouldn't have been there in the first instance.
The immediate problem was that it filled this area, this safe area, or this escape route for people on this level, it filled it with smoke. The next problem we encountered was that this automatic vent that's there now, that has been subsequently replaced, at the time of the fire, this was just a roof light or a dome. So there was nowhere for the smoke to go. So effectively people were trapped in the building.
We had to go through the smoke, whereas we couldn't see a thing going through the smoke because the lid wasn't working. So we had to run down the stairs and we panicked.